So what we're going to learn today is how to read information from a user. Right now, we've learned how to create some variables and save information in them, like byte age equal 89. But how about if I want to ask the user for this information? How can I get the user input? So to do that, we're going to need to use a class called scanner. And notice scanner starts with a capital S, just like string starts with a capital S. So now we know that in Java, classes start with uppercase letters. Primitive data types are lowercase letters, like int, byte, short. Those are all starting with lowercase letters. Scanner and string are starting with uppercase letters. Math also started with an uppercase letter. So the scanner class helps us read information from the user through the keyboard. So we're going to ask the user some information, and the user is going to type this information. So the first thing we need to do is add a line to the top of our code. So we want to use scanner. We need to import scanner. Import means we're going to start using it. So this line, I need to add it to the top of my code. So I'm going to go to the top of my code where it says package, and under the package, before my class, I'm going to write my import line. I'm going to say import java.util.scanner. So this line needs to be there, and eventually you will memorize it. You're going to write it a lot. You're going to memorize it. So that's the first step. So this is step number 1 in reading user data. The second thing we need to do is create an object that is a scanner. Now, we haven't learned how to create objects yet. This is the first object that we're going to be creating. So let me just write the note here. Number 1, add import line at the top of the Java file. So we did that step already. Step number 2 is to create a scanner. And again, this is the line that you're going to memorize. And the line of code is here in the slides. I'm just going to write it myself. So we say scanner with the capitals S, and then we give it a name. And I'll just call my keyboard for now equal to new scanner. And in parentheses, we're going to say system.in. Now notice, when we wanted to print something to the output window down here in NetBeans, we said system.out.println. So system.out is actually also an object. It's an object, and we're giving it a command to print something for us. And so when we print something to system.out, it shows up in the window down at the bottom. Now, the same window that we're using for output, we're going to also use it for input. And so the user is going to be typing in this window. But when we are reading in, we call this system.in. So this window at the bottom is the system window. It has an in portion and an out portion. And we're going to be using the in portion to read in. So now we created our scanner object. What do we do after that? Well, the scanner, because it's a class, just like string is a class, it has methods. And it has methods that start with next. It has other methods, but those are the ones that we're going to be using for this class. So if we want to ask the user, for example, for a double, we can read it in using next double. If you want to ask them for a long, we can use next long. So let's start here and let's ask the user some information. So I'm going to print out a message to the user. So I'm going to say system.out.println. Hello. What is your name? Now the user is going to see this message and they are going to type in their name. Now when they type in their name, I want to read it in. Where am I going to store it? I need a variable to store it in. Well, their name is going to be a string. So I'm going to create a string. Let's say username. Cool. And I want to set it to whatever the user typed in. How am I going to get what the user typed in? I'm going to go to the keyboard, the scanner that I created, and I'm going to say, keyboard, I want you to give me the next line. Notice here we have a next Boolean. If we look at the data types, we have byte, short, int, and long, the 4 whole numbers. We have float and double. We have Boolean. There's no next char. And there's no next string. So if you want to read characters, you need to use next line. So next line is going to read a string value from the user. And we want to read in a string because the user's name is a string. So we're going to use next line. So we use next line, read strings in. Okay. And let's test this out. So let me verify it by trying to print back the user's name. So I'm going to say hello plus the user name. Let's run this code and test it. And you should be testing this with me to make sure you got it right. Okay, so here it says, hello, what is your name? And you see that the program is running. So it's waiting for me, it's hanging there, waiting for me to type something in. So the keyboard, when you use the keyboard.next methods, it's going to wait for user input. So the program is still running, it's waiting for me to type something. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to start typing something. So my name is Kat today. And I press enter, and the enter is what's going to tell the scanner that I'm done writing. And it says, hello, Kat. Now let's try it again. And this time I'm going to type in my full name. And see, as I'm typing, it's allowing me to type. So as long as I haven't pressed enter, it's allowing me to type. Once I press enter, it's an indication to the scanner that I am done typing. And what it did was it went to the keyboard, it went to the system.in, and it read the whole line until I reached the enter. And it saved all that I typed, it saved it in the variable username. And so then it says hello, and when I ask it for the username from RAM, it's printing it out for me. Okay, so this is how I can read in strings. Well, how about other things? Like, let's say, ask for their age. Ask the user, how old are you? And I'm going to create a variable for that. So they're probably not more than 128 years old. So I'm going to use a byte. And I'm going to go to my keyboard, my scanner, and I'm going to say now next byte. And here NetBeans is trying to be helpful. It sees that I created a variable that was a byte. So it's giving me a hint that you might want to use the next byte method. So I'm going to just double click on it and put my semicolon. Let's try some other variables, data types also. Let's say, how much do you make an hour? And that's probably going to be a float. So I'm going to say float rate equal to, I'm going to go to my keyboard and I'm going to say, get me the next float. Okay. You can do the same with all the others. And let's just verify that what I read in is correct. So I'm going to say, you make rate plus, and your age is plus age. Let's verify that all this is working. So what's your name? My name is Kat. How old are you? I'm 10. How much do you make? I make 1988. And it said you make 1988 and your age is 10. So I was able to read in all the information correctly. Now, this will work good, fine, but there's one problem that might happen, and I want to show you this problem. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to just put here problem. Okay. Now let's do this. I am going to now ask the user, system.out.println, what is your favorite color? And the color is a string, so I'm going to create a string variable color. I'm going to go to my keyboard and I'm going to use the next line method. And let's print it out just to make sure that we read it incorrectly to verify. Your favorite color is plus color plus, and I'm just going to put a period at the end. So let's test this. So what's your name? My name is Kat. I am 10. I make $8 an hour. And then it asked, what is your favorite color? And it didn't wait for me to type in anything. Immediately, it said your favorite color is, and this is the space that I added after the is, and immediately there's a period. So it didn't read anything, nothing. It didn't allow me to enter anything, and it didn't read anything. So what is going on? Why is it doing this? So let's try to see what's going on in the background. So when I started typing, it asked me a question. I typed in cat and I pressed enter. And so what next line does, it reads in until it sees the enter. So it read in the cat, saved it in the variable, and it saw the enter and it ignored the enter, because the enter is just an indication that the line has ended. It didn't save the enter as part of my name. It just took it and finished. Then I asked the user, what's your age? And they typed in 10 and they pressed enter. And so what next byte did was it looked and it saw a byte, 10 is a byte, it read it in, and then it saw the enter and it was like, okay, well, enter is not a number, so I'm just gonna skip it. And then we asked how much do you make? And I typed 8 and I pressed enter. And next float went looking for a number. It saw the enter and it says, oh, well, enter is not a float. I'm going to skip that. And then it found the 8 and it says, oh yeah, 8 is a float. I'm going to read that in. And then now we ask the user, what is your favorite color? And the user hasn't typed anything in. But what next line came along and it saw immediately, it saw after I asked the user, it saw an enter. And what it does, it thinks the user has typed something and they pressed enter. And so what it does, it reads nothing because I haven't typed anything. So this is a problem that we will always run into anytime we have some kind of number that we're asking the user to enter, followed by a request that's going to use next line. Because all the methods that read numbers like next, byte, short, float, double will only read the numbers. They will not read the enter. They only search for numbers. The only method that is concerned with the enter and makes use of the enter is next line. So next line takes the enter as an indication that we are done. And so here, next float read the 8, it didn't read the enter, and it left it there sitting. And so when next line came to look, it saw the enter and it thought the user is done. But the user was not done. So how do we fix that? Well, the fix is very easy. We want to make sure that we ignore the enter. So solution is to ignore the enter the user pressed after the last number. And so what I can do is I'll just go to the keyboard and I will say next line. So I'm going to the keyboard, the scanner, I say, just read me the next line. Read me that enter. And that will read the enter and get rid of it. So let's test it and make sure it's working. So what's your name? My name is Kat. I am 10. I make $8 an hour. And here it worked. The next line ignored the enter. It read in the enter. Read the enter and basically didn't do anything with it. And so now the user, when they ask what is your favorite color, the enter has been read in by that empty next line. And so it's going to wait for me to enter my favorite color, and my favorite color is purple. And now it's printing it out. So this is how we use Scanner to read information in from the user. We have to first create a scanner object. First we have to import java.util.scanner, and then we create a scanner object and we use these methods. Here's an example. We are importing java.util.scanner. Before our class, we created our scanner object that points to system.in. We created some variables. We asked the user how much they're investing. We read it in. Principal is a double, so we're using the next double method. And then we're asking them for the interest rate, which is also a double, so we're going to use the next double, and then we do our calculations and print out some messages to the user. Now, like we saw, there is a problem when we're using Scanner. Here, we imported Scanner, we created our keyboard, and we asked them how much do you make an hour. We're asking them for a float, and then we're asking for a string. So anytime you ask for a number followed by a string using next line, you're going to run into an issue like we saw. And the fix is to add a next line. You go to their keyboard, the Scanner, and say, ignore that enter the user pressed after the number. And so adding this one line will fix the code for us. Okay, so for the classwork, what I want you to do, this is going to be practicing the string class and the Scanner class. I want you to do these steps in order. You're going to ask the user for their first name, then their age, then their last name. And notice here, because you have a string and then a float, a whole number, a byte, and then a string, byte followed by string, number followed by string, you're going to run into the problem that we just talked about. So you're going to have to make sure you fix that. And after you ask for those 3 pieces of information and read them in and save them in variables, you're going to print this information. So you're going to print for me how many characters the first and last name combined have. So for example, if they said my first name was cat and my last name was dog, you're going to say that the number of characters is 3 plus 3, which is 6. And remember, we're going to go back to the string class and use the .length method to get the length of a string. I want you to print the full name in uppercase letters and lowercase letters. So you're going to be using the to uppercase and to lowercase methods that we learned on the string class. You're going to print me the first letter of the name, and you're going to use the char at method and give it the index 0 to do that. And then you're going to print the age that you read in. Test your code in NetBeans, make sure it's working, and then test it on HackerRank and submit your Java file and a screenshot of passing all the test cases on HackerRank. This is the end of chapter 2. So you will also have a programming assignment to do. It is listed here and it's also on Blackboard. And you will be able to also test this on HackerRank to make sure it is working properly.